This is the Boulder Zone, the fusion of masculine advice and entertainment.
This is Sparta!
Here's your host, Marco Boulder.
Hello again, my fellow interwebbers. Welcome back to the Zone. Thanks for tuning in. On deck, we have our usual brand of no-frills, unpolished, manly talk and jocularity, and no Stuart Smalley types around here. Nope. But for a fee, I understand his tear-soaked pastel sofa and sensitive dialogue can be rented elsewhere if you are so inclined. And speaking of Smalley, I've got a special show for you. My guest today is a man who reached out to me a couple of months ago looking for help dealing with some pretty significant marital problems he was having. Like most men who go all in and it goes bad, it seriously eroded his self-confidence and self-worth as a man and really impacted all areas of his life. I'll say right off the bat, this guy is no pussy. He's a combat veteran, rode top-end Harleys, owns a successful business, and had little trouble attracting women. Like countless men before him, he tried marriage counseling, individual counseling, did the internet deep dive, and talked to friends and family, but wasn't making much progress. Now, I'm not besmirching anyone who chooses the therapy route. If this is where you feel comfortable and where you see progress, fucking awesome. But for others, like my guests, they felt like they weren't getting to the root of their problem. And if they did, it required some serious compromise of core beliefs, and worse, who they are as a man. Most men want simple, straightforward answers. It's how we're wired. The dirty little secret is you already have these answers, but your situation, and especially in today's culture of emasculation, has us chasing our tails. This is what we're going to uncover today. So with that, I'd like to welcome my guest, Marcelo. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing okay, brother. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for coming on. Hey, let's get started with a little background.
Sure.
Recount to me what problems you had in your marriage.
Well, I think, brother, it was not necessarily, her or me. It was both of us that kind of got disconnected. And the majority of it was because I was away from home sometimes on trips, and we kind of got separated a little bit in our emotions and our times. And so we disconnected in our relationship.
Looking back, what do you think the catalyst was? What started all of that? Was there one specific thing? Was there a couple of things? Was it work?
Well, I think it was work, and also the fact that we became I guess, to a point in our lives where we had been together for so long, doing things together, and I became a somewhat more service to the family, meaning that I did everything for my wife and my kids and didn't really do anything for myself. That may have pushed her a little bit away because she still liked to do things with her friends. But for me, I just felt like, oh, well, why would you want to go out with your friends all the time? Because I didn't go out with my guy friends, which in my opinion now was probably wrong.
What was the decision that pushed you to that point where you decided, hey, I'm just going to sacrifice my friendships, my relationships, and just go all in for my marriage? What propagated that?
I don't know. I think honestly, it's just my culture. In my culture, we do everything for our family. And granted, I'm not perfect. I made mistakes along the way. But for the most part, I just devoted too much. And I believe now, through your help, I realized that was wrong. Because I think there should be balance. And I didn't have that balance. I would be at her beckoning call, at my kids' beckoning call, which now I understand through what we've talked about is not the way to go in a relationship.
Right. So one of the things, as you know, I like to do with guys is when they get into situations like you've been in, I like to point things back to the person, to the man.
But
And there's usually a point where the man realizes that he's lost his manhood, as it were. He feels that he's been pussified, whatever put him to that point. What was the point? If you can pinpoint it, what was the point where you felt that, hey, I've lost my mojo?
yeah, I mean, that was a tough moment in my life, and I remember it very well, man, because what happened was that she started to kind of get to a point where maybe I was smothering her because I would say, "Hey, look, what would you like for dinner tonight? Hey, you want to hang out tonight? Hey, you want to do this tonight?" So the minute that she started to maybe share the fact that, "Hey, I, I need some space." Whenever a woman says, "I need some space," that's a huge red flag. I didn't take the red flag appropriately. Instead, I was worried. I became have anxiety and paranoia. That's when I lost my mojo because that's when I started to feel like, man, I'm not appreciated. I'm not liked. I would post things on Facebook and she wouldn't like it and it would hurt me. And the more that I felt like she was pushing me away, the more I lost my manhood.
You know, Marcelo, over the past few months that we've talked, you've shown that, where you come from, what kind of man you are. And folks, I'd mentioned in the onset that this is a gentleman that is not an introvert. He's done a lot of things in his life that really puts him squarely in that manhood zone. And so for something like this to occur, to completely pull a guy like this out of that zone, it was pretty significant. And I mention that for the fact that I don't want any of you to think that because a man feels like he's lost his manhood, he's a pussy. It happens to all of us. It's happened to me. We've all gone through it. The point is, get it back. How are you going to get that back?
Right.
So, with that, where was your turning point? When did you understand that there was a way back?
I guess, after we spoke and you shared with me that, hey, brother, you got to work on yourself. You got to do things for yourself. And the disconnect was the fact that I felt for all these years that, I need to service my family, that I sacrificed myself and I lost myself. So once I started realizing, like, you know what, I want to go golf. I want to go do something for myself, buy clothes. I started realizing, like, hey, you know what? I had some enjoyment from that. So I think the turning point to me was just the fact in realizing that it's not all about my wife or my kids. I mean, there's a balance, like I said, but I didn't balance it before. So now it's different. I'm able to realize now that, hey, this life is not all about everybody else. It also includes me.
So, what occurred to make you say, "Oh shit, what happened to my manhood?" I mean, I just don't feel like I've got my act together. I've given up on a lot of things. I'm just not doing anything that I want to do anymore. When did you realize that occurred?
Well, I think the oh shit factor was when we started going to counseling, right? And when we went to counseling, it was just, there was no true support for us. It was literally the counselor that kept trying to do little things here and there, but then have us come back and come back and come back. And I knew I was just losing money. So then I went to church, and nothing against church. I'm a very religious man. I believe in God and Jesus. But they too were coaching me as far as just have faith in the Lord, believe in the Lord. He will save you. He will do what's right. but they gave me no action as far as what I should do for myself. That, along with, I had some friends that also coached me along, but they just didn't give me what I needed. And so it wasn't until I talked to you that I realized that in order to overcome this low point in my life, I have to really concentrate on myself to give me strength. Because if I have strength in myself, then I have confidence. And if I have confidence, then I can tackle any hurdle that is pressed upon me.
Guys, I want you to hear what he just said there. This isn't a selfish move. When I suggest men do this, how in the hell can you make other people happy when you're not happy? What is your role as the man in the household? You're the leader, right? So you're leading across the board, and that includes the health and welfare of your family. So if your mind is fucked up, if you got things going in there bringing you down, your marriage, your work, and that sort of thing, you need to turn it back to yourself and look at yourself and start to see and figure out, where did this begin? What happened? What were those forces? 8 times out of 10, most of you are going to go like this. It was him and her and that and the dog and that bitch up the street and all this sort of stuff. No. You're missing the point. You need look at yourself. What drew that negativity out of those people? Was it you? Was it them? But all you can do is correct yourself. You start there. And that's what Marcelo was talking about right here. He got it. It clicked in his head. Hey, I got a kid. I got a wife. Shit is not going good. I need to figure out what I can do to make myself return to that point I was before when I was feeling strong and healthy. Marcelo, he has decided to file for a divorce, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But on that point, was there another point where you felt like you were at your lowest? We've talked about when you lost your manhood mojo. Besides that, was there another point where you were just like, holy shit? And how did you feel at that point?
Well, I mean, I think for me, a large percentage or majority of this feeling was because I was losing my daughter. I was losing my daughter because, of course, I opted to give my daughter to my wife, even though my attorneys were like, no, don't let her take her, because if she does, then she'll get residence up in Dallas. But I knew that I always put the most important for my daughter. And that was to be with her mother at the time and enter school at first grade. I didn't want to take that from her. So my lowest point was just the fact that, you know what? I'm going to do this for my daughter. I'm going to do this for my wife at the time. So I literally sacrificed everything again for others, and those people being my wife and my child. But when you do that, it makes you just feel so vulnerable, low, and you go through anxiety and all the things that happen during this form of separation from a family that you thought you were going to have for the rest of your life.
You mentioned your daughter. How have you managed her concerns, her issues, her fears throughout this process?
Well, I mean, the only thing I could do is show love. I mean, that's honestly the one thing that I've done since the day that she, separated from me. I think about her all the time. I love her, and I'll always be here for her. Yeah, it's hard.
Are there a couple of things that you've learned, you feel you go back to keep your spirits up, to keep you in that boulder zone, in that man zone? Is there anything that really sticks with you that you go back to?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we've been talking for months, and if I would have known what I know now back then, maybe things would have been different, because I believe that now I put so much attention to myself that in the beginning, when she left, I was doing things and saying things that probably weren't appropriate, like, hey, just letting you know I love you and letting you know I want to be with you, and and it's weak because any woman now, I understand, would look at this and say, this guy will do anything for me. There's no challenge. So I've learned that, yes, in my opinion, does she deserve me? No, because I'm a good man, and I've learned through you that I'm a good man. I'm a good-hearted man. I'm a good Christian man. Do I make mistakes? Absolutely. But the thing is that I do not believe that I am weak now. I do not believe that I am less than what a man should be for any woman. So you've given me the confidence to know that and feel that. Maybe if I had this confidence back then, things would be different. But the plan's different, but that's okay.
I'm a firm believer that when you meet a woman for the first time and there is a connection there, there's something about you, obviously, that she's attracted to. Initially, they look at your appearance, but then they start tuning into what you're saying, how you carry yourself, your confidence. That's what starts to bring her in. That's what starts to build the relationship. And then she falls for you. You fall for her. Where things start to fall apart is when they stop seeing those things that initially attracted her to you. Does that mean that you've got to work every day on putting on the best cologne and the best clothes and all that to impress her? No. As you get through into a relationship, there's a comfortability that occurs, that comes about. That's normal, right? What you need to do is make sure that you are delivering the goods you originally sold. It doesn't mean every single day. And she needs to do it too. This whole thing about women expecting men to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and all they bring to the picture is just this. Those days are the past, all right? She has to deliver to you a loving, caring, respectful attitude. Now, guys, that's important. That's paramount. Because believe it or not, we connect respect to love. If we're not respected, guess what happens here? We don't feel loved anymore. So if you're not feeling respected by your woman, then you need to sit down and have a long talk with her. So with that, I understand that we talked about this a minute ago, that you started divorce procedures. As a grown-ass man, that's your decision. I've said this on other podcasts before. I'm not advocating either way. If you should divorce, if you should not, that is your decision to make, yours. I'm not going to sit here and tell people that, no, fuck that, give up, throw it in the towel, it's all fucking done. Or, oh no, you just can't. You just can't ever give up. You've always got to keep trying at your marriage. At what sacrifice? At what fucking price? Your sanity, your manhood, what? What's the breaking point? Well, the breaking point is just like what I said there. Your manhood. If you've got to sacrifice your principles of who you are, your faith, if that's your thing, and if it's not going to change, start the counseling route. Whatever works for you. If you go to a counselor, you come and see some guy like me, just do it. You do the internet deep dive, like I mentioned earlier. Give everything a try, but don't compromise who you are, because once you're lost as a man, you're lost across the board until you get that back. Now, I'm sure there are men out there watching us right now that are neck deep in the shit like you were. If, having gone through this, what advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, I'd have them talk to you, because that really helps to strengthen your manhood, right? Because without that, you fall into a depression that you just can't get out of. And I've been there. I think talking to you, though, I had the ability to realize that, hey, I'm a good guy. And whatever happens, is the outcome is going to be better if I have somebody like you, because if I have a counselor that's going to just talk about, oh, let's do some therapy games of how we can overcome this, or if I have my church group, which I adore, and they're all like, well, just pray to God. Well, that doesn't help me. What helps me is sometimes, basically, like when you and I have talked, it's like, hey, wake up. Hey, this is the real deal. You don't sugarcoat things. You basically tell it as it is. And that's the way that I felt most with a positive approach, that I can say, you know what, I'm going to overcome this as a man. And so that's what I would say.
Yeah. If you talk to me on the phone, if we get knee to knee, I'm not going to sugarcoat things with you. We are guys. It's in our DNA. We want a simple, straightforward answer and path to follow. You know what? My personal feeling is, yeah, those symptoms cause problems, but let's go right for that fucking cancer. Let's get right down to that fucker and knife that bitch out of there. It's going to hurt like hell, but you're at least going to get to it. You're going to look at it, you're going to pull it out, you're going to see what it is, and you're going to throw that bitch away. Now, that's a real rudimentary explanation of how I like to do things with people, but I'm telling you, we can get through shit a lot quicker, and that's what we all want, right, guys? We don't want to sit there all day long listening to shit, and then next week, and then next week, and then next week. I don't do this for any other reason than that, to help men get to where they need to be, where they're the most happy. And Marcelo, I want to thank you for having the courage to come on and share your story. Not a lot of men want to do that. To me, that in itself defines a man. When you are willing to put yourself out there, your time, your effort, your story, to help others, that is what a man is about. That is when you have some confidence, because hey, you know what? I don't give a shit. It's true, and I can help somebody else. So thank you for doing that. Any last thoughts before we call it?
I mean, I think the only last thought is that I wish the best for everyone that is going through this. I do recommend talking to Marco, because without him, I would not be at the place I am today, which is confident and with the ability to move on positively in my life. So I thank you, Marco.
Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you very much. There you have it. That is why I do what I do, right there. That's the show for today. I hope you got something out of this. If you're going through problems like this, if you know someone who's going through problems like this, reach out to me. I'll talk to you on the telephone. I'll talk to you on video chat. We'll do it in the chats, wherever you want to do it. You can contact me through all the social media outlets over here as well. Please check out the website, boulderzone.com, boulderzone.com. And before you leave, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe, hit that like, ring that bell even, so you know when we've got good stuff coming up. Until next time.
You know what to do. Get bolder.